Hello everyone, welcome back to Star Ocean, the second story. Are you ready for the tournament arc? Because we kind of have to do that since we can't translate anything yet at Linga. I would love for the story to continue, but it just won't let us. You think of how long these people have been traveling together, it's like, yeah, Rena probably hasn't. I'm gonna put a big asterisk on that because, yeah, they do pull off the... Lacour is supposed to be the biggest town, but it's mostly in presentation, not actual exploration. No, we don't, Claude. No, we don't. We're gonna make it so that we have a lot of time to spend here, but for now, let's just go around and figure out what the overall bustle is. Again, the arms tournament is the big thing that's happening here. Supposedly happening, quote, in a few days. But at least there's some people out there remembering, hey, you remember Continent of L and things happening there, and we actually have like some sort of pressure and global stress. Some people hold on to that. Everybody else is like, wow, the tournament's coming. The tournament's coming. And the only qualification is be confident in your abilities. So the standards are, if not on the ground, maybe a little bit lower. Meanwhile, tutorial lab coat girl. Yes, we can turn off any skills that we want to, so they're not wasting their time. It's a shot like this that really gives off the scope and the size of the town, even though we can't actually travel to any of those places. Also that it's just in mist and fog. We'll come back here later. On top of this, there's not a lot of just random houses that we're able to explore, except for this one. There literally is no purpose, and even with the windows over there looking at brick wall, that seems very reminiscent of big cities. But yeah, no chest, nothing we can plunder. It's just there, the house with the red roof. And yes, if you saw that title, you saw it right. We'll see a little bit of dialogue where they play around with French. Like here, it's kind of fun, where it's le cœur of Lacour, the heart of it. Anyways. Oh, and then there's that picture in the back there. If you are familiar with any of Triace's stuff, you know who that person is in the black border. Maybe we'll fight her a very long time from now. Now, Lacour is... like, they really gas it up as being, like, really big, and there's a lot of things to explore there, but unfortunately, because of when we first come here, it's, we get a little bit walled off from what can happen here. There's all of these weapon shops, but they don't serve as weapon shops yet because of the tournament coming up. So it's like, oh, okay, they serve a completely different purpose there. Now, there's also this woman here. And as far as I've been able to tell, I don't know who, like, a lot of work went into that woman there. But I don't find a connection between either Enix in terms of their past titles, in terms of like reference. And it's certainly not a Tri-Ace reference, because this game is their second game. They made Star Ocean 1 and then 2. So yeah, that woman. Large piece of art for this game, to the point where it's on the world map. Unknown. But also there's a cat. I do enjoy that they do the foreground shadow silhouette business and just had a little bit of fun with it. Now, if you look at the difference between Cross and Lacour, Lacour is a little bit bigger than Cross Castletown in that it has an additional 3 screens? Maybe? Yeah. Also, there's this store here. You'll notice that we can't buy or sell anything here. It is completely useless to us. It's because this is a place where we are able to use a skill that we don't have yet to sell books that we write. It's an interesting concept. It just doesn't really tie into anything. More of a reward than anything. All right, let's see your extra ingredients here. We got a really expensive seltzer and nothing else. Great. Thank you, Mr. Chef. So, at this point, with the skill guilds, we're actually coming to the end of the skill guilds being someplace we actually visit. Because once you have been to Lacour Castletown and Linga, you will have all of the skills except for one. Now, I have to go back to Linga, personally, to get the other one there. But at the very bottom of the list, you'll have one empty space left if you have been to every single skill guild. Where does that one skill come from? We won't see that for a while. But I will say now, it's not a great skill. It's not great at all. Well, at least somebody's helpful about our investigation and the fact that we're supposed to be investigating in the first place. And we have a handsome man. Who could that possibly be? Okay. I love our information desk here. It's honestly so casual about it. So wait for a few days, or we could do well enough in the tournament apparently, and maybe the king will see us a little bit earlier, who knows? Like he has any sort of authority on it. Lacour is definitely a place where Tri-Ace was kind of experimenting with how it was able to do what other JRPGs were doing at the time, which have multiple instances in the same place. So, for instance, there's a before, during, and after in terms of Lacour and the tournament, where we get to see all of these different NPCs doing a whole bunch of different things, see them in different locations, and really get a sense of liveliness to the whole setting. Our tour guide, our maid going around there. Oh, I mentioned of the princess. Returning from Cross. Here she is. So this is a slightly different screen depending on the private action that you have access to or don't. So Rosalia is here because we did the private action with Celine. But if we don't have access to it or don't do it, the princess does marry Chris. slight change, but that's about it. Not everything has... not everywhere we have access to. But it's surprising what we are able to just wander into. And all wandering around with their dirty feet and get off my lawn. See, we shouldn't even have access to this room. Of like, yeah, this is the planning room. Should get out. I don't think we ever find Mom for that kid. Things to pick up here in terms of just information, in terms of the heraldry laboratory, things setting up, a big weapon. And a little bit of things that are out of context here. We have researchers whose superior is like 10 years younger than they are. Not even mentioning his name. Oh, there we go. That Leon. There's someone named Leon around here. Maybe we can find him. Now, I honestly like this room because you're technically not supposed to be here because a lot of dialogue is not ready for you to be here. For instance, I don't think it's this guy. Is this guy? Yeah. You're really supposed to be here after the Tournament of Arms is supposed to be done. They don't have dialogue for before you arrive here, so it's like they really don't mean for you to be here. The fact that he's not even giving us his name. We can put two and two together, though. I love the feeling of crowdedness that is in this castle. Now, there was all that talk about being able to learn a little bit more about the sorcery globe, but of course not. That would mean we have to actually examine things, and there's not really what this game does. Check out all these weapons. Can I examine any of them? No. Not even supposed to be in here. Oh, we have another lost child. Yep. But I got a feeling that those two are named after kids of the staff. I have nothing to confirm that, but that's just my belief. But here's the biggest place. Ah, the Colosseum. Even the soldiers get involved to help out with making this place ready. And yep, they should help more often, maids. I shall clean it while continuously holding my spear. talk of a handsome man registering. Oh, well. Can you check it again? And we got this room. 2 bunk bed? Quite a sizable room just for 2 bunk beds. And then we have the actual arena here. Again, another area which is going to see a lot of activity as we go through. The before is pretty light, but it has a few people who are really anticipating the tournament. One of those people who would wait 3 days outside of a location in order to make sure that you're there and ready. To be honest, we're going to see it, but I have to double check whether or not he's actually in that spot when the tournament starts or not. Sure, you do that. Thanks, soldier. And then nothing over in the front. All right. So yeah, not a lot happening, but it's going to be a very different pretty soon. So that gives us a taste of just the whirlwind tour of going around Lacour at this moment. What we have access to, what we don't. So, what are we supposed to do? Since we're supposed to be in here and nothing's happening until after the tournament is over. Well, if the registration credentials are going to be so low, why not we enter the tournament? They're accepting applications up to the day just before the tournament. They're saying that it's like a few days before. Because again, the timeline, they really focus on a timeline in this point of the story, and that's what I'm pointing out here. So yeah, we're pretty much funneled into involving ourselves in the tournament. This is the kind of the fun thing about this section of the game, because when it comes to the general pacing, not including everything else optional you can do, including like getting Ashton or Pressus or doing any private actions, you're coming into this tournament really, like as Claude says, I've never really tested myself much. And that's because you're really not given a whole lot of opportunities to do so before this moment. Coming here the first time on Claude's perspective, I was roughly level 13 with the party, which is very low in this case. That's without grinding, without doing extra stuff, just nothing. So, we've been registered. Has Claude already registered? Yes, he has. You think that Ashton would also register. But no, we're just going to focus on Claude here. As Rena, it feels like she's talking to us specifically, of going like, hey, take a look around the shops. Also, look at them, mes petites. Claude, that is a very out of character line. Sometimes, depending on certain circumstances, I have noticed that Celine will also say a line like that, and that is more appropriate to her than it is to Claude. And that is also a thing where we're just kind of almost stuck in Lacour until you leave there. But there are some private actions you can do before the tournament. I believe a little bit after as well, including this old woman. This old woman private action is identical between Rena and Claude. I've already shown Claude's specific private action that happens in Lacour, so I have no need to show it again with the little girl, but this one is a lot simpler. She wants to get some chores done. There's really no reason to say no. It's just kind of a net positive, just this little story of head over to a shop on the other side, the tool shop, bring it back to her, and you're done, pretty much. We have to get that shadow off of us before we can do anything more. Claude, you're so perceptive. Again, I feel like Ashton could have registered as well, but I guess just decided not to. It is this store that is just kind of huddled over to the left beside the publishing house. Hey, here's some gold. What's a tool shop doing with gold? But again, gold doesn't seem to have much value in Expel, so think of it that way. So you get the gold, come back to her. And for doing this little errand, we get another star ruby on top of the one in the castle, and a rainbow diamond. Which at this point in the game is probably more worthwhile to sell than it is to use. But it is a really good material for crafting if you're getting into that. I don't know, just a little lighthearted story about an old woman deceptively making people help her. No harm done, no foul, but we get some stuff out of it. So, sponsorships. There are 4 options you can go with. Counterpunch, Knockout, Slayer, and Straight. When it comes to the options there, you really are just going with whatever suits your fancy. I will say overall, you're kind of looking at who do you feel is really connecting with you here? The first one here really focuses on defense, because the Sinclair Saber is something we kind of already have in terms of our damage output. So if you're wanting a little bit more survivability, you go with him, because you'll see with everybody else what they favor instead. Now, to be honest, at this point, and especially with the pacing of this game, defense is the least of your problems. And to be honest, with choosing who you're going to go with, since your stats are so low and your level is so low at this point, if you really haven't been doing any grinding, even having good defensive armor going into the tournament is not going to help you. Believe me, I've tried. Going up against the fights there, most of them can finish you off in 2 to 3 hits tops. And that is with the best defensive equipment. So if you're really thinking about like what is going to get you through this tournament, go with something that is going to be a lot more offensive than defensive. Like, this guy only has leather armor, so defense is not his focus. The long edge is the most powerful option you can go with. And if you've been looking at the text, this is the shop that has sponsored previous winners. So if you're going by that and going by general logic, it's like, yeah, you should be sponsored by the shop that has had previous winners in the past. The third is hidden away. Slayer. In the back here is probably the most eclectic shopkeeper of them all. And I will say arguably is also the one that has the most unique selection. Although that isn't saying much. So in terms of rarity, there isn't much rare that's coming out of Slayer. It's a slight downgrade in terms of attack, but the Walloon Sword is still a good option. The rarity is in the items. All of the other 3 stores carry the same thing, but this one, fruit syrup, fresh syrup, attack vial, and a violence pill. Which for some people, they will just register with the store just for the items alone, because the equipment doesn't really mean much. And finally, we have the last one over here. I commend that they do attempt to make the 4 weapon stores a little bit more characterized in terms of how they're selling their things. So again, Bandit a little bit better, the Night Shield, the Plate Greaves. Again, armor is not the important thing. The Gascoigne is a little bit better than the Walloon Sword, but the trade-off is the standard items. Sweet syrup, mixed syrup, blackberry. Not really all that interesting. Out of all 4 of them, I feel like this last store is picked the least when anybody does a playthrough. So now the question is, out of those 4 choices, which one should we go with? In terms of our progress, should we go for power, which means either knockout Slayer or straight? Or should we go the defensive option? In terms of this, seeing as straight I feel is the one that is least picked, I'm gonna go with it. Now, hands up if during this entire time you've just been looking at the cat. Now we're doing 2 playthroughs, so it only makes sense if we choose a different store for the different playthrough. And in this case, because of the specific items and her eclecticness, I'm going to choose Slayer, just to show off those items. The other question I have with all of these stores here is, because of the registration requirements being so low, and all of these stores pretty much turning into sponsorship platforms, how many contestants do all of these stores sponsor? Because they must take multiple sponsorships. Or multiple sponsors, based on how many people actually register for the whole thing. So at the end of the whole thing, depending on who you register and who you don't, they'll realize that you've already registered with someone else because you just have that tournament pass in your hand now. I like to think of it as just like, oh, I have a pocketbook now and I just rip out a ticket and go, here's your pass. Sure. That's why they're considered tournament fighters. Look at all this wonderful, happy, good time that everybody's having, going back and forth. It's great. We should go back and forth too. And hey, what a fantastic deal. You go to the hotel, it is free for you for the duration of the tournament. As everybody is ready to party, as they say. Weirdly enough, with Precious in your party, she just kind of only says her thing. No one else pipes up. It's weird. But now we can actually go into the hotel. I avoided going in here beforehand because simply there's nothing interesting in here right now. And boy, does register, like, the logistics of this whole thing are very impressive. They move fast. It's like, yep, I have your file, I have your information. You're ready to go. So this is your last chance to do anything before the tournament starts. If you say, no, I'm ready, you are locked in for the tournament. That's it. The other awkward thing about this whole section is that there is not a single save point that you have access to. Like, going outside before that option is the last opportunity to save, because between the beginning of the tournament to the end, you cannot save. And that's the reason. What? Having 2 dragons attached to you is going to be disqualification? That isn't in the credentials criteria. Meanwhile, Precious is wanting to be somewhat famous. Okay. Yeah, no kidding. Oh, you would really, like, man, they really made that just dig in, didn't they? Hmm. Something. And we really don't even know that Diaz is here, apart from maybe some sightings of a man, but we're just bringing up the whole deal with the heraldry forest again. That's all that's really happening here. We need to resolve this somehow. And that's the end of Claude's perspective. Then it just goes straight into the tournament. But with Rena, you're able to just go off. And hear what else is going on in terms of the hotel here. Awkwardly, there's only 6 rooms in the hotel, so one of them has a CEO type apparently in it, CEO mindset. But the implication, of course, is that there's more than just the one inn that is in Lacour, so this is only one place where they're able to just get some rest. Now, in terms of wandering around, you are literally just open to going wherever you please, but there is a specific place that we are expected to go. You won't know that until you literally stumble onto it. So remember back way over here that there was this section that we were turned away from? It's a little bit different now. Turns out there's a 5th store all the way up here. I mean, look at the giant sword right outside that is 2.5 times as tall as the door. The door is also weirdly square. Where's all the cool posters? I don't know if it's a store if there's not posters. I love that it turns around and from being, we're working over here, could you please come back another time, to you turning away enough people that no one wants to come this direction anymore. Sponsorship's working on a no return policy. So Rena, I appreciate what you're trying to do here, but your immediate line of thinking is not ethical and not really thinking of the current situation of bringing a child. I will be your temporary legal guardian so that we can go to the bar and pick up a fighter. This can only go well. We have a child in our party. All right, so this man, Gamgee, or as some people call him, Grandpa Gamgee. If it wasn't for just the whole event back in Click, he's honestly a very fascinating NPC to learn from in terms of how certain parts of this game were developed. And it comes down to pickpocketing. Now, I bring back Click because if you are someone who uses the pickpocket ability the first chance you get in terms of getting it as quickly as possible, you've been pickpocketing people constantly. Grandpa Gamgee is probably the NPC who shows up in the most different places in the game. In Click, yeah, there are 2 places where a bunch of the NPCs show up, before the earthquake and after the earthquake, which meant that you were able to steal from them twice, because they are considered 2 different NPCs. So an NPC is not just who they are, it's based on where their actual location is. So Gamgee here is considered one NPC. But because he can be in a different place, much like Sophia, you can pickpocket him from multiple times. And we'll be seeing him a couple times too. I love that's immediately where the dialogue ends, and it feels like there should be a little bit more until you actually go, oh, I have control again. So let's do that. So we got our old smith who's washed up and no one wants to give him the time of day anymore. So we need to find someone who's able to inspire him that he is still considered skilled. So let's go into the bar. Still a bad idea. Well, we can try any of the triplets. Again, all the soldiers look the same. Yeah. So this is an awkward kind of scene that we have to do here because we're just constantly talking with the NPCs there, and as you talk with them, then Sophia will eventually start moving around. Because there really isn't much else to do here. Yeah. Oh, please. So at this point, there we go. It's about getting her to move, and she is needing to move twice before we can do something else here. Awkwardly, though, I'm missing one of the NPCs here, so I'm just constantly talking to the same people over and over and over again. Complete blind spot in terms of where he is. But then she's moving over here to this group. And if you keep talking with them, like, nothing happens afterwards, so it feels really awkward until you begin to leave. Because you shouldn't think that just like, oh yeah, I should try to leave in order to move things forward, because of course you couldn't leave with just a child alone in a bar. Well, Diaz. So he is here. I don't know. With the way I play this game, it was a very long time ago. Now you've piqued my interest. Swords. Apart from threatening to bisect a child, we're pretty civilized in terms of what's going on here. It's gotten soft. You know, he's kind of right, especially when most of the swords that you can get from the sponsor shops also have a chance of dropping from enemies. And just before it turns into an argument about what level everybody is, like one of those terrible advertisements, he leaves. Diaz, level 35. It's higher power level than you. Anyway, there's a little bit of there's a little credence I can give to how Diaz just speaks his mind. Gets it all out there. Unfortunately, though, even though he says it to Sophia, he's not going to say that to Rena because it was her idea. Alrighty then. See you, Diaz. I'm totally gonna be the third wheel. See what's going on here. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's kind of it. There. Diaz literally told us, hey, you're done here. You need to head back. And that's exactly what we'll do. Yeah, let's leave the tavern alone. Let it cool down in there. And hey, if everybody else is getting a rest, we might as well get one too. Especially if Rena is a little bit pale. I like this little conversation here. Like, it didn't need to happen, but I appreciate it. That the manager would actually, like, have a little bit of hospitality to it. Time to get some rest.